Hey everybody, thanks for listening to the El Toro's podcast, exclusively now on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Here, let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on things like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast, which is always a plus, with no minimum listenership. And it's everything you need to make a podcast right at your fingertips and in one place. I can't believe it took me this long to switch over to Anchor.fm, but I couldn't be happier now. So, get yourself started and download the free Anchor app now, or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
The following podcast is scheduled for one fall. Welcome to episode 35 of the Capital Wrestling Podcast. And now, introducing, standing in at 5 feet 9 inches from Annandale, Virginia, the host of the Capital Wrestling Podcast, Sean O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Michael Buckley, for that warm introduction. It's great to be back here at the Capital Wrestling Podcast, episode 35, and we've already spoiled the guest without the actual introduction so far, so tonight's guest, my friends, is going to be the ring announcer of Capital Wrestling, the voice of Capital Wrestling, Michael Buckley. And before we get to Michael, let's do a quick few plugs. We've got a lot of breaking news this week with Capital Wrestling, a lot of match announcements and everything. Once again, you can catch us here every Wednesday afternoon at 12 o'clock via YouTube and SoundCloud on El Toro's podcast. You can catch us every Monday night, gfqlive.tv. We have replays on Pivot Share and Twitch. On Twitter, go to Capital Wrestling without the G. At Sean Neutron is my Twitter. On Facebook, search Capital Wrestling. Instagram, Capital Wrestling. Those include the G. And if you want to get some merchandise, go to whatamaneuver.net. Go to prowrestlingtees.com. We got royal blue shirts, we got beanies, we got hoodies, everything for the fall weather. If you want to get tickets, go to capitalwrestling.com. Also go to tinyurl.com. And if you have any business inquiries or sponsorship deals or talent that wants to be included with Capital Wrestling, just email capitalwrestling@gmail.com. So once again, it's great to be back here at the Capital Wrestling Podcast, and it's going to be good to talk to Michael in just a few minutes. But we just have some announcements, though, in terms of matches for Capital Wrestling. We have our newly announced 5-way dance, including with Mike Law. Also, we're going to have a Packy Chip death match with Jeff Cannonball and Logan Black. Anthony Angone, Matt McIntosh, and LSG will be in a number one contenders match, and there's also one more participant to be announced. So, keep it tuned to Capital Wrestling for that. Also, the Master of Excellence will be taking on the debuting Wildman Congo. And also in tag team action, Bo Crockett and the Mofo, representing the NRA, will be taking on Isaiah Wolf and Hank Flanders. So just a few of the matches that are going to be upcoming on December 29th, and a lot to look forward to, and even more to be announced. So can't wait for that. But the one man who will be announcing all the people there will be Michael Buckley. How's it going, Mike?
It's going well, man. How you doing? Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you, and thank you for putting up with my long-winded introduction today.
No, that was pretty succinct.
So yeah, man, well, what have you been up to lately?
I've been working a lot. I've been following the Capital Wrestling on Monday nights.
Mm-hmm.
Just doing the thing, living life, and I have a fitness business. I have a personal training business, and I do online training. So that's been paying the bills. It's been keeping me busy recently.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, tonight we had Capital Wrestling, and we had Mike Law defend his television title against Bo Crockett, and he came out victorious. So it was a really fun match to watch. We also, before that, got to see the antics of the Memphis Mofo, Mark Bravura, and Bo Crockett looking for a meal, a decent meal for Mark Bravura. He ends up finding booze and barbecue, as it is.
Sounds delicious.
And probably nothing that we should be eating, right?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. But yeah, definitely a fun night with Capital Wrestling. Also introduced a few new guys like Hank Flanders and Isaiah Wolf. But yeah, I mean, we'll get to Capital Wrestling a little bit later on to touch on that with your experience after 2 shows with them. But you said, the personal training business, that's the first thing we're going to dig into tonight. Where did that begin for you? Your love of fitness?
So it actually started. I was an actor for years and years. Very early on in my acting career, I got hired for a job where I had to start working out. So I was never athletic when I was in high school or when I was a kid. I was always kind of the last kid picked in gym class. And then I got cast in a part where I had to start working out for the role. So it was basically a fear of getting fired that inspired me to get in shape really quickly. And then I had a really good trainer very early on that really kind of instilled a love of fitness. I started to see changes in my body. I started to reimagine what I was kind of capable of physically, because I'd always thought of myself as this very unathletic person, and to be able to exceed what I thought were my physical limitations just kind of inspired confidence in all areas of my life. So kind of be on both sides of it, knowing what it's like to feel like completely lost in the gym, and I don't know how to, and that's just not me. I'm just not a physical person. I'm not athletic. That's just not me. To know what that mindset is like, and then to kind of have the complete transformation and become a fitness person, it's something that kind of inspired me to instill that in other people, that kind of like pushing and exceeding your self-perceived physical limitations gives you the confidence to kind of push out and push. You start to realize like most of the limitations that we have are actually self-imposed.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of wanted to give that to other people. That's where I kind of got into fitness. And then I started my own business because literally I went to a friend of mine who was also an actor. I went to his apartment one day. He had a really nice apartment on Central Park. And I was like, dude, I know you're not on a TV show. What are you doing to pay the bills? How do you have this nice ass apartment? And he basically told me, oh, I'm a personal trainer. And I thought to myself, oh, if he can do it, I can definitely do that.
Uh-huh.
So that's, literally it was such a shallow reason when I started the business. It ended up that I really just loved the work, that it's really fulfilling, that I get to help people, and I get to meet a lot of really cool people that I wouldn't meet otherwise.
Now, did you have to go to do any sort of education for it?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I've got a certification from NASM, and I have a specialization in corrective exercise science.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm working on getting kettlebells, special kettlebell specialization as well.
Oh, okay, nice. Now, did you what kind of schooling did you do when you were younger?
Oh, the Burlesque in college?
Yeah.
Oh, I was a theater student.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, kind of worn a lot of hats, and I kind of think that the wrestling is kind of a culmination of all those things. Because I was an actor. I worked as a stand-up comic for a bit, and I hosted a lot because when you're a new comic, you're in the MC spot a lot, so it's kind of like running a show, driving a show, engaging with the audience directly. So a lot of the skills that I learned in comedy clubs are skills that have served me really well in, the ring announcer is essentially the host of the live show, right? So I've actually, all the different things that I've done, I find all kind of like inform everything that I'm currently doing.
Now, when you do that, when acting, what kind of roles did you look for? Do you have anything that you play to your strengths, or do you like to look to expand your range wherever you can? So
I would say I'm retired, and my girlfriend always busts my chops about that because I still end up doing a couple. I do about a film a year at this point.
Uh-huh.
And she always laughs because I keep saying I'm retired, but just from so many years of being out there and doing it, I know enough people that now people will call me and say, hey, can you do a couple days on this project, things like that.
So pretty much you're like the Undertaker of acting now.
Like the Terry Funk. I'm like the Terry Funk of acting, yeah.
Yeah, he just comes out once a year.
Yeah, right. Well, like Terry Funk, who's like retired like a million times, keeps coming out of retirement. Some of the acting credits I had that I guess were some of my favorites were children's TV show called Cyber Chase.
Uh-huh.
And they still play that actually a lot. Kind of funny. Sometimes we'll be flipping through and there. But I played the bad guy on that, just kind of this arrogant jerk. And the show is a math themed show.
Yeah.
So often my character would get his comeuppance in the end because in addition to being a horrible human being, my character also usually failed to grasp whatever the mathematic concept that episode was trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
There was an episode where I got fired from a job because I couldn't understand how fractions work, for example. Yeah, so that's probably one of the more recognizable things. I did a guest spot on All My Children, some stuff like that. And I was on the national tour of Greece and the national tour of the musical South Pacific. So yeah, it's some of my favorite things.
Then going back to the personal training, what do you think are some of the biggest difficulties you have with it, or if there are any obstacles you encounter?
No, that's a great question, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about the job of a personal trainer is that people want to exercise, or most people I think want to exercise. They know that they should exercise. Even if you take the looking better aspect out of it, people know that the health benefits of exercise can't be overstated. People know that you'll live longer, you're less susceptible to disease, you'll feel better, that it's a natural antidepressant, you'll sleep better, it'll improve just the way you function day to day. And I think people know those things, and people can read articles and they know the stats, yet most people are underactive. And the reason why is because exercise, although the benefits of exercise are amazing, the act of actually doing it can kind of suck.
Yeah.
So, right from there, it's an uphill battle. And a lot of people, by the time they hire a trainer, they're hiring a trainer because they know, I'm not doing it on my own. I'm not getting it done on my own. I'm not going to show up on my own. I need that accountability.
Yeah.
I need to pay someone to be there. Otherwise, chances are I'm not going to show up.
Yeah.
So you kind of start with that uphill thing, an uphill battle for a lot of people. A lot of people by the time, but if exercise were pleasurable while it was happening, my job wouldn't even exist.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I think that's like the obstacle you go in with. And then a lot of it initially is actually kind of flipping the mind game for people, right? So people have all these ideas about exercise. They have traumas built up around it. They maybe aren't feeling great about where they are physically when they're starting. And a big part of my job initially is to build a program that's appropriate for them so they can feel a sense of accomplishment almost immediately. Do you know what I mean by that? So
yeah, no, because you want to give them confidence, just like you want to give a wrestler confidence in the ring. You want to have the same person have confidence so that they can accomplish something, like you said.
Exactly. Yeah. And the way that you do that is by not bombarding them with just an insanely difficult, impossible, completely inappropriate for their fitness level workout. It's about easing them in. It's about everyone's got their long-term goals. People come in and they'll say, my short-term goal is to lose 35 pounds, but that's not a short-term goal at all. That's your long-term goal. So it's a matter of reframing it for people where you say, you know what, let's make your first goal. We've got these 3 sessions a week. So make your first goal just, you're going to show up for these 3 sessions, and we're going to get through that hour. And for the first month, your only goal is to just not blow me off at all, right? Just to make sure that you are showing up and doing the thing.
Yeah, reliable.
And that's something that is immediately attainable, and that's something that immediately people start to feel a sense of esteem, a sense of accomplishment. And one of the other things that I try and stress is the feeling good immediately stuff, right? So when people have these long goals, they think about where they want to go. They're constantly measuring themselves, like their current body versus where they would ultimately like to end up. It's great to have an idea of where you want to go, but focusing on that too much can actually be a bit of a deterrent. It can actually make you feel kind of frustrated along the way. So I try and stress the more immediate things that are attainable. That say first week, right? The second or third session, you're gonna feel good the second we finish this session. If for no other reason, then you will no longer be exercising. So you're going to feel good immediately. So let's focus on just getting through this hour so you can feel good.
Yeah.
And what the thing is, I think people don't see the transformation immediately, But people start to see little changes, and they start to feel little changes almost immediately. And I feel like that's a big part of my job, is kind of like illuminating those little accomplishments and those little victories along the way. Because you don't want to deprive yourself out of those little accomplishments, because you add up enough of those little victories, and before you know it, you are reaching that big goal.
Exactly. Like you said, a lot of people loathe exercise, whether it's a certain exercise or it's the entire thing, and you have to be held accountable. But even as a personal trainer, I'm sure there's some exercises you don't like to do. What is one exercise you absolutely loathe?
I don't think anyone really likes burpees.
Burpees, yeah.
I do them. They suck, but yeah, they suck. But yeah, probably burpees. I don't think there's anything else that I just detest. I kind of, it's such a cliche for a guy to say that they hate leg day.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't skip leg day. That is true, but like, man, oh God, I hate lunges. I hate squats, but you got to do it. I hate leg day. I'll admit it. I love it. I love what it does for you, but it sucks, man. But you got to do it.
No, yeah, definitely. You need that base, that foundation, especially like wrestlers and athletes. I mean, they definitely need it, because you can't be top heavy,
Oh, yeah. You know how I trick guys into doing legs is most of, especially the classics, your deadlifts, your squats, your lunges, even a leg press, even from like a prone position using a leg press machine.
Yeah.
Almost all of those exercises, a ton of core strength. So the way I trick dudes that don't want to do leg day into doing leg day is I tell them, oh man, we're working your abs. This is ab day. Because all those big leg exercises are so ab intensive that it's not completely a lie. But yeah, we're doing squats and lunges and deadlifts, but you're also working on the six pack while we do those things.
Now, what are some of your general tips you'd have for people, whether looking for gyms or just trying to work out themselves? Just basic general tips.
Not currently doing it, that's looking to get started?
Pretty much, yeah, like beginner level, or just people, things like, I guess, maybe misconceptions or just mistakes people make, just advice you'd give them.
That's a great question. So I would say if you can at all and I obviously can't train every single person in the world, so this is not just a bias, and I'm not just trying to say hire me, but if you can at all, even if it's just for a couple sessions, hire a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. For one thing, it'll provide that accountability so you actually use the gym membership. And for another thing, I think one of the most intimidating things about the gym experience for people that aren't, quote, gym people is you go in there and you look around and it seems like, man, how do all these people know how to do this stuff? And the answer is half of them are probably doing it wrong. And then the other part of that is, no one is born knowing how to do this stuff. I had somebody show me how to do it when I was starting. So if you can at all hire a trainer, that's great. I understand that's not in everyone's budget, so if that's the case, everyone's got that, got a friend that's their fitness friend,
Yeah.
So, ask a friend that kind of knows what they're doing if they can just show you a couple things. You want to go in with a plan. You want to go in with somebody. You want somebody that knows what they're doing to kind of show you around just a little bit, so you don't feel totally lost. Because that feeling of going into a gym just feeling like I don't know what the hell I'm doing is not gonna. That's not gonna last very long. You're not gonna get the most out of that membership.
Yeah.
And a big thing that I would say is, don't start with something insane right out of the gate. You want to start with an exercise program should be appropriate to your fitness level, and it should be progressive. And it should be appropriately progressive. So, there are all these programs out there, these like that are literally called Insanity and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's and people will go from not exercising at all to doing these super intense, hardcore workouts right out of the gate. And they might see results, and they might hang in there for that 6 weeks. But then what happens after that 6 weeks? And is that sustainable? So I would say that in general, you don't want to just think about joining a gym and starting to exercise as something that you're going to do for a finite period of time. You want to start habits that you're going to carry out for the rest of your life. So you want to start slow, start small with somebody that knows what they're doing, if possible, and then gradually progress. Right? That's the most sustainable way to do it. And I always say consistency trumps intensity.
Yeah, that's a great line right there. That's pretty much sums it up and puts it in a nutshell, really. But a great attitude to have. But now we're going to switch over from obviously the personal training to wrestling. And before we get to Capital Wrestling, it has to start with a love of wrestling. When did you first begin to fall in love with wrestling?
I think about this all the time, and I love that question. Whenever I go to like a meet and greet or something, anything where there's a Q&A, that's always the question that I want to ask whoever it is that's speaking, because I think we all have that moment, right? Like that, either it was a character, or it was an angle, or it was a specific moment where you're like, I don't know what this is, but I love this. And I think for most of us that have been lifelong fans, there was no middle ground. From the moment we first kind of got hooked, it's been an obsession, right? And so for me, my grandmother was flipping through channels, and I saw, I think it was actually the old TBS 605 show.
Yeah.
And I just saw it, and I said, what is that? And my grandma said, oh, that's wrestling, it's stupid. And she kept clicking channels, and I just saw it for a second. I knew I want to find out what that is. I don't know what the hell that was, but it looked amazing.
Yeah, because you got the bright colors. You got it's just unlike anything on television.
Unlike anything else, yeah. And that one, like, you got like, it was like the old studio, and it was just like these two like enormous like men that just looked like they had been through a war. And then for me, the thing that got me like in it, no turning back, was Rowdy Piper kicked Cyndi Lauper in the face, and that was, I heard about it before I saw it. I had a babysitter that was talking about it, and just hearing that it happened, and then he had a VHS, and then seeing it looked like totally inappropriate, probably for my age at the time, and that was it, man. I was in from that point on, and because I hated Roddy Piper so much because of that, and I was my first favorite wrestler was Hulk Hogan. As a kid, I was diehard Hulkamaniac.
With your Halloween costume this year, I believe you were the Macho Man?
Yeah. yeah. So first was Hogan, and then it was Savage. The first time I ever saw wrestling live was because I'm from New Jersey originally.
Yeah.
So WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania was going to be in New Jersey, and my birthday is in March. It's March 31st. It's also the date of the first WrestleMania. So WrestleMania was always coming up like around my birthday. So I begged my dad to take me to WrestleMania 4 for my birthday, and he did. It was the first time I ever saw wrestling live, and that's the one where they had the tournament. And so my poor dad, not really a wrestling fan, and that's like a 5-hour show.
Yeah, I get they can get pretty long.
Yeah. So, and I remember because this is before the internet and before before you knew everything that was going to happen before you saw it on TV. We assumed that Hogan was gonna win the tournament, and my dad even said to me, if Hogan doesn't win, we're gonna go home. So of course Hogan didn't win, and Savage won, and so my first live event, Savage winning the title, was a huge surprise, and just following his journey in that just one night was just it was one of the best days of my childhood. It really was.
Definitely. It's one of those things where you follow the journey and you follow the stories and you get attached, just like, a TV show or movie, and you get invested in the characters. And even though you don't know these people, like sometimes when you don't know them personally, but say like when Eddie Guerrero passed away, you could see fans crying. And at first I'm like, I don't know why people are crying, but then I'm like, then it hit me. I'm like, damn, it's like losing a family member sometimes.
I thought about that when Flair got sick recently.
Yeah. Yeah,
a lot. Like, is it silly for me to feel this way? Is it like I don't know this man? Like
that just goes to show that the how they can reach through the screen and captivate you.
Wrestling means so much to me in my life. Like I think about my life in wrestling terms constantly. I really do. Like even we were talking about the training.
Yeah.
So I think about this all the time. I have an hour with my clients, right? And everybody is different, and everyone's skill set is different. The way that people respond to things is different, and I literally think to myself, this is what it was like being Ric Flair, right? You go from territory to territory. You're going to I'm going to the Broadway, right? You got to do a Broadway with a different opponent, different move set, different skill set, in a different territory constantly. And I travel. Like I go to, I work all over the city. I go to people's buildings and stuff like that. So it's different locations and stuff like that. And I think about it all the time, like filling that hour and how you have to fill that hour with different things based on who the person is. I think about it all the time. I'm like the Ric Flair of personal trainers.
Well, what is your current favorite product to watch?
Capital Wrestling.
Well, I mean, like obviously Capital Wrestling, but let's talk about like mainstream or do you do streaming or anything like that?
NXT.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would say NXT because NXT and then Ring of Honor probably after that. And I still watch Raw. I can't get into I feel like it makes me maybe a lesser fan, but because of the, for me, so much of it is the characters and investing in a character and following a character's journey. I can't really get into New Japan. And when the Kenny Omega Okada match happened and everyone was sending it around, I couldn't get past the first 10 minutes. And it's only because I don't have an emotional attachment with those guys, right? And
no, that's understandable.
Yeah, and so I feel like it makes me like, people will say, "Oh, you're not a true fan," like you didn't watch every single day of the G1 climax. What, you're not a wrestling fan.
Well, that's the trouble. Some people think you have to watch all of it. Like you can't possibly watch all wrestling. Like I don't watch Lucha Underground. I don't watch the New Japan. I try to watch as much as I can about different things, and I see things here and there. But like you said, a lot of times you can't get invested in certain characters. It takes away from it.
Yeah, so I think NXT, because they have a WWE budget, but because it's not overwritten. You know what I mean? Like it's like very simple conflicts that are set up.
I think what helps them is they only have an hour of television, so they have to fit it in concisely without too much filler.
Which is so much better.
Yeah, we don't need 3 hours every Monday.
That's the biggest problem with WWE right now is that they just have so much. They have so much content that they have to produce every week. So by the time you get to a pay-per-view, you've seen the two. You've seen these two people. Like how many times are Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler gonna wrestle?
Yeah, and then you see how many times have you seen Nia Jax and Bayley?
Right, exactly.
I mean, the cycle continues, and then it's like, all right, you have more people you can put them against, you just choose not to.
I actually miss jobber matches for that exact reason.
No,
I think because I think there's something for that. Like there are certain wrestlers where I couldn't even tell you what their finisher is.
No, because
because they'll fight a competitive Raw match. Like what's Kurt Hawkins' finisher? Does anyone know?
His finisher's getting pinned.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think he's lost something like 120 plus matches in a row, and it's like his gimmick now. And he doesn't mind because he's getting a paycheck, and I really, good for him. I mean, he's helping like the talent out, and he's got his Creative Pro school in New York. So I mean, he's still doing things, even though you might not see that right away. But
I like Kurt Hawkins. That's not I'm not dissing him at all.
Oh no, not at all. But
yeah, I think so. I think NXT is actually the best of both worlds because they have the best. They have a WWE product. They have great in-ring product. They do spend a lot of time developing characters, so you can invest in a lot of those characters. And that hour, I mean, they really are well served by an hour. They're also well served by their specials are 2 hours, and they're perfect. It's 5 matches. They're almost all at least decent, and there's always at least one really good match.
And the thing too is that sometimes they have people they bring up too early. Sometimes they got people who you feel have been there too long. But a lot of times I'd rather keep them there too long than not long enough, because it's kind of like cooking something. I'd rather overcook it than undercook it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And they also don't bring somebody up if you don't have
anything.
Their first 3 months of television planned for them.
Yeah, because you bring certain guys up and you're like, what are you going to do with them? And then you kind of just, they shrug. But
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, they've got...
I actually really like the, in all seriousness, I do like the way the Capital product is booked. because it has a sort of, it does sort of have that NXT feel where the issues are set up in a very, they're not overcomplicated the way they set up the issues that people have. The characters are very identifiable, and the booking isn't over. It's not overdone. It's booked enough that allows you to make an emotional investment in the characters in the context of that Capital Wrestling world. But it's not overly complicated, and and things are booked in a certain way, like on the main roster shows. It's unnecessary complications. They have like all those like you're talking about like finding something to eat and getting some ribs. It's not drawn out over a 3-hour episode where they have the one joke, where they keep going back to over and over a 3-hour like segment that are too long. I know who those guys are immediately. There's a payoff immediately. It's not, it's a perfect length of time. Like that's actually a great. That's one of the things that Capital does really well is, setting up. These are who these people are, immediately identifiably, and kind of delivering in a very succinct, clear way. It's clarity, right? Like all of it has to end up in everything that you see on a wrestling TV show has to in some way manifest in something that's going to happen between. So you don't want to overcomplicate those things.
No, I totally agree that
most of the story should be told in the ring. Mm-hmm. Set it up outside so there is that investment, but then the story happens inside the ring.
No, I totally agree. That brings me right into my next line of questions, which is, obviously you come to Capital Wrestling, and what really attracted you to Capital Wrestling, aside from, you just mentioned the product and what you like about it so far, but what really brought you to Capital Wrestling?
Also, you were asking about what's your favorite current product?
Yeah.
I actually watch a lot. One of the best things about YouTube and the network and just having access to like basically any piece of wrestling that was ever filmed for any reason whatsoever is kind of discovering a lot of the territories that you've heard about for years for the first time, and I love how there's this kind of old school territory feel, but it's done in such a contemporary way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a perfect hybrid of kind of old school TV wrestling and with a super contemporary spin.
Now you mentioned the acting and the comedy. Had you ever done any sort of announcing before this?
I've done a lot of hosting, like hosting live events, hosting corporate events, like television hosting. Not in wrestling. It was always something that I really loved, but I feel like it's just such a great way for me to kind of marry all the parts of myself.
Yeah, and now two shows in from Hoboken, that there's a lot to look back on right now. What is your favorite aspect of Capital right now? Whether it's the roster or the location, the crowd, whatever it is. What is your favorite aspect?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great roster with just so much talent. Yeah, I think that no matter how you dress it up, any promotion, it's gonna. It all comes down to to having good talent that's well booked.
So when you talk about the roster, do you have any favorite matches or any stars that really stand out to you?
Yeah, a bunch. I think Sonny Kiss is a one-of-a-kind talent. And my mom and my girlfriend actually came to my first Capital show, and then my girlfriend came to the second one. And my girlfriend's a wrestling fan, not as big a fan as I am, but she's a fan. And my mom is not really a wrestling fan at all, and they're really taken with Sonny's work. Just so many, Anthony Gangone, Matt McIntosh.
Then you had Ken Dixon named the Capital Wrestling.
Matt Sells is entertaining as hell. I love the Ronnie Burton, Joey Ace pairing. Smiley. There's so much stuff. I'm gonna leave people out, and I don't want to. I mean, just off the top of my head, without even thinking about it. think MJF, who was at my first show.
Yeah.
I mean,
how was interacting with MJF? I mean, I know he loves to berate people, especially ring announcers.
Yeah. I love stuff like that. Any chance to, I mean, I'm an actor, and I love that little interaction. He kind of degraded me a little bit, and and I didn't know it was coming, which is great. So my reaction was pretty authentic. But I mean,
I took a beating from him on the podcast, so I totally feel you.
How was that?
It was he definitely he controls the interview, not me. He controlled the interview, which is fine by me. But I'm just sitting here asking stupid questions. That's all I do.
That's funny. I mean, he's an incredible heel. He's really good in the ring.
It's hard to believe he's only 22 years old.
Something like that. Yeah, he's got a great promo. I mean,
well, hopefully,
and he's over 6 feet tall, right? I only ask that because that's the thing they always talk about with like Vince, right? Or at least
no, but I mean, we'd love to see him back in Capitol as soon as we can.
Yeah, no, I mean, so many.
And what about any favorite matches that stand out to you?
Yes, the Sunny Kiss Ron Jourdain match.
Paul Jourdain, yeah.
Paul Jourdain, sorry. The Sunny Kiss Paul Jourdain match. I thought was so well worked, and the story was really great going in because it was Sunny fighting for his Capitol Wrestling career. The pacing was amazing. I just thought it was. I love wrestling. I think it's such an incredible and misunderstood art form. And I thought it was a piece of art. The Gangrone McIntosh match I thought was really good. I love anything Mike Law does. I forgot to mention when I was talking about the talent before.
Before you came on at the Cathedral, he had a great match against Preston Quinn. He fought Bo Crockett, and then he fought who did he fight in between? Oh, he fought Matt McIntosh in between that.
Yeah, that's the match where he had to go to the hospital afterwards, right?
Yeah, he had a little bit of a fainting spell, and then he went to the hospital. Everything checked out okay.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think anyone that loves wrestling has had that thought about, oh man, like there's part of me that has always wondered, could I do it? And you see something like that, and it's a pretty sobering reminder that it's a special kind of person that can be a wrestler at all, and it's gonna take its toll. There's nobody that's impervious, that's never gonna get hurt in any way, and I mean, it's just one of those things where I already have the utmost respect for what they do, and it's just kind of a reinforcement and a reminder of like how much respect I have for anybody that's able to do it,
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, all the utmost respect to that roster, and we have had a lot of great matches in the past 2 shows in Hoboken, and overall the last four shows overall, and now we're heading into December 29th, and we've got the War Games coming up, and got the so they have to make a few adjustments to the card. I think I believe there was an injury to a few of the stars, but we're gonna have to work around that and see what is on tap for that. Like I said earlier, we got like the Packy Chip Death Match sponsored by Packy Chip is going to be Jeff Cannonball versus Logan Black. Now the loser of that, I believe, has to eat the Packy Chip if that serves me correctly. Have you seen that? I think Matt Sells, Jeff Cannonball, and a few other guys were trying the chip.
Yeah. So I was going to ask what separates a Packy Chip death match from a regular death match, but I guess that's the answer there.
I think they get scoop slammed onto a bed of Packy Chip deaths or Packy Chips.
Oh, are the Packy Chips on fire?
No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, I'm somebody who likes all mild stuff, so don't get me started with spicy stuff. I'm sure I would die if I ate the chip myself, but it's definitely one of those things like where they had the water right by. Like I would definitely need that. So whoever, I think Jeff himself, he has a podcast, or not a podcast, but a YouTube show where they do, it's called The Flaming Table, and they try all the spiciest stuff, whether sauces or foods or snacks, whatever it is. And so he might be, I don't know how Logan would deal with it, but I think Jeff could handle the heat.
That is amazing.
So it's like covered in powder, but I'm interested to see, those two guys are very physical fighters. They're brawlers. I mean, they'll go all over the place, and we're curious to see what that happens. We've had a Capital Combat match before, and now we're going to have a package chip death match, first ever. So that's coming up on December 29th. Also announced the number one contenders match for the Capital Wrestling Championship. It's going to be Anthony Gangone, Matt McIntosh, and LSG, with a fourth one yet to be announced, which you can make all your guesses and Michael, who would you guess would be that fourth competitor if you had to guess?
Give me the first one.
The first three were LSG, Anthony Gangone, and Matt McIntosh.
The fourth, and it's for
the number one contendership for the Capital Wrestling Championship.
Oh man, maybe I would say is it maybe Sonny or.
Mike Law's been announced for the 5-way. Now,
that's right.
For this one, but for Sonny's a good guess, but I can't confirm anything right now because it hasn't been announced yet. So it's just pure theory and speculation right now.
I would say probably Sonny Kiss, because I would imagine that Paul Jordan's going to be on Matthew Ryan Shapiro's team for the World War IV match.
Yeah, which would be very interesting to see, and I think we'll have to see what happens with the New York Wrecking Crew. They got Perfect Strangers. But like I said, the 5-way dance with Mike Law, curious to see who the other members of that match are. You're going to be Master of Excellence. Preston Quinn deciding to pretty much, I guess he wants to bring back the old school wrestling vibe as the leader of the NRA. And he's put on a mask and calls himself the Master of Excellence, taking on the debuting Wildman Congo, which will be a very interesting brawl between two very big guys. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to that. And then today was announced we're going to have the Bo Show and the Memphis Mofo, Mark Bravura, taking on Isaiah Wolf and Hank Flanders. So those are two new guys to Capital Wrestling. They showed up and they had a 2-on-1 match versus Jason Karloff at the last show. And we'll have to see how they do against Bo and Mofo. But as Bo likes to call it, he likes to call it Bo Mofo Boken. So that's a mouthful.
I don't know if that would fit on a t-shirt.
If you want to talk about t-shirts, Mark Bravura has a brand new t-shirt out. He just debuted it. Go look on his Twitter at MemphoMofo, and you can check it out there. I mean, it's a pretty sweet shirt. It says the last bastion of old school wrestling, the Memphis Mofo, Mark Bravura. So go check that out. Really good design right there by Tara Calloway. But before we get out of here, Michael, is there anything you would like to plug? Anything? Your social media, your business, anything you'd like to go for?
Yeah, sure. So the name of my company is Buckley Body Solutions. So I have a website, buckleybodysolutions.com, and I do online training in addition to my in-person training, and all my online programs are completely customized. So it's not a one-size-fits-all type thing. And I'm on Instagram at TheRealBuckley.
Excellent. We can have everyone follow you there, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you on December 29th. Hopefully the weather won't be too bad. I'll be driving up myself from Annandale, Virginia. We'll be looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see how the card shapes over these next 2 months. So I'm really, really excited for this. And once again, man, thanks for your time and coming on the show. Thanks for having me. My pleasure, man. And anytime in the future you'd like to come on, man, just let me know. I would love to. That would be great. But yeah, everyone, that's going to do it for episode 35 of the Capital Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Sean O'Brien. You can catch us here every Wednesday afternoon at 12 o'clock on YouTube. Search Capital Wrestling, and also SoundCloud.com/ElTorresPodcast. Catch us every Monday night live at, I believe it used to be 6:05, but just catch us every Monday night at GFQLive.tv. We have replays on PivotShare and Twitch. On Twitter, follow us at Capital Wrestling without the G. Follow me at Sean Neutron. On Facebook and Instagram, just search Capital Wrestling. And you want merchandise? You want t-shirts, hoodies? They got new beanies. Go to whatamaneuver.net and ProWrestlingTees.com. And if you have any business inquiries or sponsorships or your talent who wants to appear on a Capital Wrestling show, go to capitalwrestling@gmail.com. Check out capitalwrestling.com for tickets and more. And go to tinyurl.com, search Capital Wrestling for the tickets for the upcoming show as well. So once again, everyone, thank you for listening to episode 35 with Michael Buckley and myself, and we'll catch you here next week.